the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws, and how can we work together?
When we realize
Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. On that note, let's take a look at the headlines this hour. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has rolled out the red carpet for Russian President Vladimir Putin as all eyes are trained on the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit. Deepening defense cooperation, civil nuclear ties and augmenting trade to $100 billion by 2030 are all on the agenda. The US military has informed that 4 men have been killed in a strike on a suspected drug vessel in international waters of the Eastern Pacific. Officials have stated that the vessel carried illicit narcotics along a known trafficking route. Protesters were removed from the New Orleans City Council meeting for opposing an ICE immigration crackdown as federal agents target the city in broader operations by the Trump administration against illegal immigrants. US authorities searched the home of a man in Virginia accused of planting 2 pipe bombs in Washington, D.C. on the eve of the January 6th Capitol riots. The suspect has been identified as 30-year-old Brian Cole. China has urged restraint as US military activity near Venezuela continues to escalate, backing Maduro's sovereignty and opposing foreign interference. Meanwhile, Venezuelan president has highlighted China's support amid growing US pressure, thanking Beijing. US President Donald Trump has hosted Rwanda's Paul Kagame and DRC's Felix Tshisekedi in Washington to sign a peace agreement aimed at ending conflict in the region. Trump has called the deal a great miracle, though clashes continue on the ground in Kivu. An Israeli delegation has traveled to Cairo to negotiate the return of the last hostage in Gaza under the US-brokered ceasefire. Following the recent return of a Thai worker's remains, authorities are pressing to secure the release of Officer Ran Wheelie. Well, viewers, those are the headlines, and we're tracking some breaking updates from New Delhi. We're learning that the Delhi airport has issued an advisory as operational disruptions continue. The airport has stated that passengers should expect delays and check flight status before traveling itself. Indigo Airlines has cancelled 225 flights amid ongoing issues affecting travelers across the city and beyond. Airport authorities have stated that they're working to restore normal operations as quickly as possible, although no exact timeline has been provided. Travelers are advised to arrive early, stay updated on flight information, and prepare for possible changes. We're tracking some other crucial developments from India's national capital. Russian President Vladimir Putin will hold talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi very shortly, aiming to boost trade with the top buyer of Russia's arms and seaborne oil as Western sanctions squeeze decade-old ties. Now, Modi and Putin are also expected to discuss other topics including labor and civil nuclear energy, with both sides expected to announce new agreements. Reportedly, there are 25 agreements on the anvil. Meanwhile, ahead of their talks, Putin has, in fact, questioned the United States for slapping punitive sanctions on India for buying Russian oil. He stated that the US itself buys nuclear fuel from Russia. Putin has further questioned why the US has the right to buy Russian energy supplies and India does not. Meanwhile, joining us on the broadcast are two very special guests, Ms. Shruti Dasgupta, International Affairs expert, and Professor Veselin Popovsky. I'd like to go across to Ms. Dasgupta first. Of course, a lot regarding defense, civil nuclear cooperation, augmenting trade ties, and reducing the trade deficit in particular are on the cards. Reportedly, there are about 25 agreements to be signed. What are your big ticket expectations?
Well, some of my expectations are already showing up on ground, one of which is the Russia Education Agency being set up, which means there is a mutual recognition of qualification, setting up of industries, tech R&D development hubs, and all of that coming to fruition. The other is the labor pact that is being signed, which is showing that both the nations are willing to address the loopholes that have shown up in the past few months, where migrant labor was facing issues. So the labor pact has been enforced, which would help skilled labor find work in Russia, as well as Russians being able to find educated, qualified individuals in India to fulfill their requirements. So these are a few of those expectations that I see already coming into fruition. Beyond that, we've talked about agricultural developments, where our Indian Agricultural Minister Shivraj Chauhan has met with his counterpart and has talked about R&D in agricultural collaboration, protection of farmer rights, and all of that has been discussed. So beyond the defense, beyond the normal trade of crude oil, beyond the nuclear, there are other facets of this developing partnership as a special and privileged partner that Russia and India are willing to get into on the table, iron out the finer details and find the common ground so that there can be a longer, prosperous development of the relationship that has already proven its mettle over the past 25 years.
Indeed, ma'am. Requesting you to stay on with us. I'd like to rope in Professor Popovsky into the discussion. Interesting development because, you know, eyebrows are being raised, particularly in the United States of America. The Trump administration is undoubtedly viewing this very closely. In light of sanctions on both India and Russia, even as efforts to ensure that a peace deal is brought about. The timing of this meeting is very interesting. There was also, interestingly, a delegation from Lockheed Martin, the American defense manufacturers, that had met with India's Commerce Minister yesterday, Piyush Goyal. How do you think India will then balance its interests with Russia on one hand, which, as Ms. Dasgupta has pointed out, has been a time-tested partner, and also its growing ties with the West, particularly the strategic partnership with the United States?
Yes, I think India will balance very well, and it's proven in the past the same. The relationship between Russia and India developed very, very well over many years. And this is an annual summit, by the way. There is no problem with the timing, because until 2021, every single December, Vladimir Putin was in Delhi around this time. So there is no surprise he's coming back. There was a break of 4 years, by the way. And now that's probably also explains the expectations that also my colleague here mentioned. There will be 25 signatures, which is expected over 4 years, those to accumulate in various fields, not only crude oil and energy, not only in defense, but also in cultural exchanges, in education and everything else. India does balance very well. And as you mentioned yesterday, there was a United States senior delegation on also US is a big weapon supplier as well, no doubt. Not only Russia supply India with weapons. And actually, I think Russia reduced the numbers, whereas United States increases its interest to sell more weapons to India. And I must say they are a much more reliable partner, having in mind the war in Ukraine, having in mind the economy difficulties in Russia, including because of the sanctions, because of the banking problems that Russia may face. Over time, India should diversify its imports, and it does. It's already diversified a lot, its imports anyway.
Yes, we are on track to diversifying our energy imports. This was highlighted by Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, who's looking into this department. I request you, Professor Popovsky, to stay on with us. We're tracking some further updates as far as this visit is concerned. We're learning that President Putin has stated that Russia should engage and not obstruct the peace talks that the US is pushing for as far as its war with Ukraine is concerned. Putin has also stated that there are some proposals in the US plan to end the war that are unacceptable to the Kremlin. He has stated that the proposals discussed at the Kremlin meeting were based on earlier discussions between Russia and the United States of America. He's added that his 5-hour talks with US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's advisor Jared Kushner, his son-in-law as well, they were necessary and useful, but also that the work is quite difficult at the moment. Putin has stated that the initial US 28-point peace proposal was trimmed down to 27 points and split into 4 packages. However, he has refused to elaborate on what Russia could accept or reject. Still with us on the broadcast is Ms. Dasgupta and Professor Veselin Popovsky. I'd like to rope you in, Professor Popovsky, first. Interesting statement by Vladimir Putin. To what extent should this be taken at face value or not?
I don't expect much progress there. Let's remember, Vladimir Putin is an aggressor. He's a war criminal. He's indicted by International Criminal Court. The red carpet meeting in Delhi doesn't reduce any of those accusations, and the world will continue making those accusations daily and weekly and reminding who is Vladimir Putin. And I don't see any peace process. Moreover, Putin over the last days threatened not only Europeans, but everybody else in the world with very aggressive language. He was talking about that he will take the rest of Donbass with military force, meaning no need to negotiate any peace. He rejected the renewed proposal by Witkoff and Kushner in coming to Moscow, spending 5 hours and zero progress on that. And he also threatened Europeans by saying that if Europe wants a war with Russia, we are ready to start today.
Yes.
All those statements make absolutely no chances for peace. And for that matter, isolating Russia in the peace agreement is probably what will follow up. Donald Trump will be definitely not happy with this development. So I wouldn't listen to anything Putin says about the war in Ukraine because he has a lot to answer himself.
Indeed. I'd like to go across to Ms. Dasgupta. Russia has drawn its red lines, but Donald Trump is still pushing to be the peace broker, to be the deal maker, to further solidify his image in that sense with his domestic voter base as well. But in your assessment, would any deal really come through without Ukraine being taken into confidence, without Ukraine's European allies also being taken into confidence?
Well, the European allies definitely need to sign off on any of the deals that are going to be had with Russia, because they are the ones who have frozen Russian assets. They are the ones who are supplying a large amount of their budget portions to arm Ukraine against Russia. They are also the ones who are willing to put boots on the ground and are preparing for a larger war scale scenario. So the European counterparts will need to be part of the conversation. Zelensky, however, may not be part of the conversation depending on the elections that will happen in Ukraine, hopefully in the next few months. So Zelensky's position is going to be contingent on the fact whether he's relevant or not. There are definitely accusations of corruption, not just in the people around him, but of Zelensky himself, which may not see light later as time progresses and peace comes to Europe. So that is going to be part of a larger conversation. Ukraine, of course, has to be part of the peace conversation because they are the ones who have faced off the aggression. They are the ones who have paid the price in blood as well as economy. So keeping Ukraine out of the conversation would never be a practical option, because they are the ones who are actually going to have to sign off on the peace deal themselves. USA is indispensable to the conversation. Without USA, I do not think any form of peace can actually be implemented in this war. So Trump does play a vital role, despite how he tends to project it. And unfortunately for him, the way he projects it kind of minimizes the role USA actually has to play in ensuring that peace comes to Europe. But USA as a nation is important to the peace that may not come through. So all these people are stakeholders. They have to have a good conversation. They have to come with open minds and open hearts, as well as a full account of the blood as well as money lost in this entire conflict, which is now probably in a few months going to enter into its fourth year.
Absolutely. Interesting point there about Donald Trump, because, we did see quite a few rants being made on his Truth Social platform, public statements, all while efforts were underway behind the scenes with US officials working through back channels in order to get in touch with the Russians, and then this plan suddenly came out of the blue. I'd like to thank both Professor Popovsky as well as Ms. Dasgupta for taking out time, sharing their analysis and insights with us. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus away from the war towards what's taking place within the United States of America. We're learning that the FBI has arrested 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr. from Woodbridge in Virginia for planting 2 pipe bombs in Washington, D.C. the night before the January 6, 2021 Capitol riots. The bombs were placed outside the Democratic and Republican Party headquarters near the Capitol. Police safely deactivated the devices before they could explode. Now, Cole faces charges of using an explosive device and attempted malicious destruction. The arrest follows a lengthy investigation that included a $500,000 reward and new efforts to analyze evidence. Attorney General Pam Bondi has confirmed the arrest. Let's listen in to what she had to say.
As you all know now, early this morning, Brian Cole Jr. was arrested and charged with placing the pipe bombs at the RNC and the DNC on January 5th, 2021. He has been charged with violating 18 U.S.C. 844, which is use of an explosive device. This investigation is ongoing. As we speak, search warrants are being executed, and there could be more charges to come.
Joining us on the broadcast now is Mr. Matthew Wadham, American journalist and author from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. At the outset, I want to understand, have there been any revelations regarding the motives of this individual? What is your assessment? Because one of the charges is attempted malicious destruction. These bombs were placed in both the Democratic as well as the Republican Party offices. And it does seem that more charges could be mounted as indicated by the Attorney General.
It seems that he was an equal opportunity terrorist. But I don't know that there have been any accusations leveled yet about what his objective was, whether it was to hurt the two parties or just to cause chaos. I don't think they have developed that information yet, or if he was put up to this by a foreign power. We really don't. Well, maybe someone knows at the FBI, but they haven't told the public yet. And so we're just going to have to wait to see what happens there. I'm amazed that it took them 5 years to do this, and they apparently tracked the man down by cell phone records, video footage, and credit card transactions. And it's amazing that it took them that long to track down this bomber. So I'm glad that they got a suspect, but I don't think anyone should be patting the FBI on the back for a job well done at this point.
Indeed. And what do you make of the timing that the bombs were placed right before the January 6th riots that had taken place at the capital? Could his intentions have been to sow even further chaos?
Well, no one knew on January 5th, except for, the select few rioters, would-be rioters, that there was going to be a riot on on January 6, 2021. So that seems unlikely. However, given the closeness of given the contentiousness of the election and the fact that Donald Trump's Republican Party was contesting the presidential vote, and the bombs were set to go off on, the bombs were discovered, the plot was discovered January 5th, the day before Congress was to vote to certify the election. Suggests that maybe the would-be bomber wanted to inject chaos into the American electoral system. And that's something that you would expect Antifa to do, the professed anti-fascist terrorists, and that's the sort of thing that you would think they would favor. But I don't know if there's been any connection between this 30 or 31-year-old man and Antifa. We don't know why he did it, but the timing of the plot is not conclusive, but it is suspicious.
All right, so requesting you to stay on with us. We're tracking some breaking developments in the meantime. We're learning that Russian President Vladimir Putin has received a 21-gun ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi. He has arrived in his armored or a Senate limousine, often called the rolling bunker, and was greeted by top Indian officials. If there's some audio, let's in fact dip in and listen in.
श्रीमान अंतर सेना सम्मान गार्ड निरीक्षण के लिए हाजिर है।
President Vladimir Putin in New Delhi. Of course, I'll take you viewers through what exactly is transpiring right now. The visuals that you can see on your screens. There's a tri-services ceremonial welcome that's just taken place, as is done for heads of state at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, that is the residence of the Indian president. Meanwhile, we've just heard the national anthems of Russia and India as well. 21 gun salute has also taken place. That's not all. You can, of course, also see, apart from Putin, India's President Draupadi Murmu, as well as Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They're, of course, there. This event that we've just witnessed marks the start of President Putin's high-profile visit to India. It, of course, includes meetings with President Murmu and then the 23rd India-Russia Summit with Prime Minister Modi. There are, of course, one-to-one conversations that have taken place. Yesterday, we all saw those visuals of the Indian Prime Minister receiving the Russian President on the tarmac of the Palam Airport in New Delhi. Red carpet welcome over there. Both leaders, incidentally, rode the same car, a Toyota car this time around. Remember, they last shared Putin's high-profile limousine back at the SCO summit in Tianjin. So this was a carpool 2.0 that has taken place. Other engagements include the business forum that is going to take place shortly after this. Other cultural events are slated to take place as well. This particular ceremonial reception, of course, highlights the significance of India-Russia ties, especially amidst global diplomatic developments, including pressure that has been exerted by the United States by imposing sanctions on Russian oil companies, including Rosneft and Lukoil, as well as 50% sanctions on India for importing Russian oil. We're expecting 25 agreements to be signed, defense cooperation and furthering civil nuclear cooperation as well, augmenting trade to $100 billion target by 2030 that was set a while back, also reducing the deficit as far as trade is concerned. Remember, what sort of deals will materialize, that remains to be seen. There is going to be a press briefing this afternoon by both leaders, and apart from that, there'll be another press briefing by the Indian Ministry of External Affairs sometime around 4:30 p.m. today. But of course, also on agenda, as was highlighted by Dmitry Peskov, spokesperson for the Kremlin earlier, are the defense deals, whether these will materialize, whether Russia will offer S-400s, S-500s, or even the Su-57s, that remains to be seen. Of course, the elephant in the room, as I mentioned earlier, are the tariffs that were imposed by Donald Trump earlier itself. How exactly this has impacted ties remains to be seen, because India is diversifying its energy imports, as was highlighted by Union Minister Hardeep Singh Puri earlier, that we are looking at buying US oil as well. There, of course, dignitaries are being greeted. The Russian president engaging in a conversation with Indian President Draupadi Murmu. And also in frame is the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We're expecting these discussions to continue inside the Rashtrapati Bhavan. You're seeing live visuals on your screens. The ceremonial tri-services welcome has just concluded. All right, viewers, we will continue to track these developments very, very closely. But in the meantime, we're shifting focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that the US military has stated that it killed 4 men in a strike on a suspected drug vessel in international waters of the Eastern Pacific. Now, officials say that intelligence has confirmed that the vessel was carrying illicit narcotics and moving along a known narco-trafficking route. The operation comes as the United States is stepping up efforts to disrupt drug shipments from Latin America to US soil. No further details have been provided on the type of narcotics or the vessel's origin as of now. The US military has stated that it is coordinating with regional partners to prevent further drug trafficking in the area. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Matthew Wadham, American journalist. Interesting development coming in. This also follows statements that have been made by Beijing. China has stated that it is working with several regional and international governments in order to prevent any military escalation in the Caribbean. And in the aftermath of that, we've seen this fresh strike take place. In your assessment, what do you make of the statement by China, the tone, the tenor adopted, the rhetoric that it is using at the moment? It did, in fact, say that it rejects, quote-unquote, any pretext for US interference in Venezuela?
It sounds to me like this is a face-saving exercise by the People's Republic of China, because they don't have a great deal of pull in the Caribbean, in that part of the Western Hemisphere, and there's not much that they can actually do to prevent escalation of hostilities between the United States and, say Venezuela. All they can do is basically complain, and so I imagine they are, doing a little bit of saber rattling, just like the United States has been doing in recent days. But I question, what impact that would have in the real world, because they don't have a fleet in the Caribbean, and they don't have a lot of pull. They don't have a lot of authority there. And, apart from being friendly with some of the governments in Latin America. So I don't think it's a serious, I don't think it means very much for China to be complaining, to be saying that it wants to limit U.S. Military activities in the area.
We have discussed earlier how likely is it that the US is going to actively intervene. You pointed out that a land assault is unlikely. It's more or less going to be an aerial strike if and when, of course, depends on what decisions the Trump administration takes. But sticking to this particular statement, we do know that China has its own economic considerations as far as Venezuela is concerned, not just its investments, but the latter's oil reserves as well.
Right.
Yes. So in light of the US pressure in the Caribbean with the deployment of the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, the F-35s as well, how likely is then a direct Chinese interference if US does strike Venezuela, or what we're seeing at the moment is just posturing?
I think it's just posturing. The China doesn't have any capability to strike out at the United States in the Caribbean Sea. They're just trying to look tough. They're just trying to look relevant, and it's all just talk. China has an interest in protecting Venezuela because China buys a lot of oil, a lot of energy products from Venezuela, but it simply doesn't have the military wherewithal in the area to make good on any of its threats. So I doubt that the United States cares very much what China is saying.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your analysis and insights with our viewers. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus to further updates coming in from the US. We're learning that US President Donald Trump has joined the leaders of Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo in Washington to sign a peace deal aimed at ending one of Africa's longest conflicts. Now, the signing ceremony has come even as fresh fighting continues on the ground in the Kivu region, raising questions about the accord's effectiveness. After the ceremony, Trump has stated that it is a great miracle that has taken place. Of course, alongside Donald Trump was Rwandan President Paul Kagame and the Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi. Both leaders welcomed the peace accord. Listen in to what transpired.
I think you're going to see very quickly, I think you're going to see things happen. This is something that was not doable, according to a lot of people, and not only is it doable, I think it's going to be a great miracle. These two gentlemen are leaders, they're great leaders, and they're going to prove that in the coming months and years. And I think you're going to see very immediate results. I have confidence that that's what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everybody.
Celebrate progress in the DRC. We must not look away from other crises. I want to ask you respectfully, Mr. President, that in your quest for global peace, to support efforts to resolve the humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan, I think.
It's up to us in Africa, working with our partners to consolidate and expand this peace. There will be ups and downs on the road ahead. There is no doubt about it. Rwanda, I know, will not be found wanting. I can assure you of that.
All right, viewers, there, of course, you've seen what's transpired as far as this landmark peace deal is concerned. Remember, the eastern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo, that's the Kivu region, has seen decades worth of violence. Of course, as Trump has pointed out, this is nothing short of a miracle. On that note, viewers, due to paucity of time, it's a wrap on this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a check of the top headlines this hour. After US envoy Steve Witkoff's meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin on the peace plan to end the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, US President has said that the talks were reasonably good while further emphasizing on his push for peace. Following the Moscow meeting on the Ukraine peace plan, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced plans for new talks between the Ukrainian delegation and Trump's team soon. Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to embark on his two-day visit to India starting today. The two leaders will attend an annual summit held by both the countries. French President Emmanuel Macron is in China for high-stakes talks with the Chinese president. While speaking on the meeting, Macron says the two countries must overcome their differences. Hamas has returned the body of another deceased hostage as part of the Gaza peace plan. Israel has confirmed the identity of the deceased as Sutisak Rintalak, a Thai agricultural worker. With this, now body of only one hostage remains with Hamas. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has slammed Israel in his fresh commitments on the Gaza war. He has said that there was something fundamentally wrong with how Israel conducted its military operation in the Gaza Strip. China urges us to stop official exchanges with Taiwan. China has firmly opposed to any form of official exchanges between the US and Taiwan and urged the US to stop official exchanges with Taiwan and refrain from sending any signals towards Taiwan independence. Rwanda's foreign minister says a new accord with the US and DRC could help advance peace efforts even as Rwandan-backed M23 rebels and the Congolese army accuse each other of breaching the ceasefire in eastern Congo. And viewers, the top focus now on the Ukraine-Russia war. Now in Ukraine, tens of thousands of people have been left without power and heating after a new wave of Russian nighttime strikes on the southern regions of Odessa and Kherson. Local authorities say the attacks targeted key civilian energy facilities as winter approaches. Ukraine's energy company DTEK reports that an energy site in Odessa was hit overnight, cutting electricity to nearly 50,000 and more households. In Kherson, a heat and power plant was forced to shut down after repeated strikes, leaving more than 40,000 residents without heating. Officials say the facilities suffered severe damage, calling the attacks another assault on civilians in a frontline city already hit daily by missiles and drones. Ukraine's energy ministry also reports that about 60,000 people in the Donetsk region are without power following additional Russian attacks. And I'd now like to request Professor Georgy Toluraya, professor at the Russia Academy of Science in Moscow. He joins us live from Moscow. Thank you, Mr. Toluraya, for joining us here at NewsX World. Now, Russia is proceeding further into the Ukrainian territory, including Donetsk. But with these attacks and power cuts, how are those residents expected to live their normal lives?
This was predictable, and it was told many times that unless the peace deal is brokered, the offensive operation will continue. So unfortunately, the war will continue, regardless of what the opponents might try to express their feelings on, because this is the law of politics. We have now the ongoing diplomatic process, which may lead to the end of hostilities, to the end of bloodshed, but we must solve the issue in a way which is acceptable to everyone. And so far, I understand that Ukrainians have not expressed their position, have not made the propositions that would enable Russia to end the offensive. So it will continue according to the laws of war.
All right, thank you for your comment there, but requested to stay on, viewers, as we move on. Now, Turkey is urging both Russia and Ukraine to keep energy infrastructure out of the war after a series of drone attacks on tankers near its Black Sea coast. Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar said that Ankara wants energy flows to remain uninterrupted, worrying that rising risks are already pushing up shipping insurance rates. Let's in fact listen into his statements.
As of today, also we say all the parties, Russia and Ukraine, to keep the energy infrastructures out of this war, because this is very much linked to people's daily lives. But we also know that the energy infrastructure was the main target in some days in Ukraine, and vice versa. Ukraine is attacking some of the energy facilities in Russia. But we need to keep the energy flows uninterrupted in the Black Sea, in our straits, as well as the pipeline.
Now, this came as Ukraine claimed responsibility for attacks on two empty tankers heading to a Russian port last week, but denies involvement in another strike on a Russian-flagged vessel on Tuesday. The tension also briefly halted operations at the CPC pipeline, which handles more than 1% of global oil supply. Bayraktar said that Kazakhstan is now diverting more crude through the Baku-Tbilisi-Seyfin pipeline, which continues to deliver up to 700,000 barrels a day. He also revealed that Turkey and Ukraine are in talks on gas supply, with energy companies Botas and Naftogaz working on options to support Kyiv through the winter. And I would now request Professor Toluraya to join us back into the discussion here. Professor, should we expect the remarks and the appeals that are coming from Turkey to have any effect on the ongoing strikes? Or is this going to continue relentlessly and hamper the lives of the people carrying out their daily lives in these regions?
I don't think that we can expect any slowing down of Russian offensive, which includes, of course, attacking the infrastructure. I personally think that we, for almost 4 years, we tried to share the Ukrainian infrastructure, the energy infrastructure and railroads. Listen, for 4 years, the supply of Western ammunition and Western weaponry have been smoothly flowing into Ukraine without any hindrance. All the railroads, all the water stations are intact. I don't understand why. I think that if 4 years ago Russia have started with the destruction of energy infrastructure and logistical infrastructure in Ukraine, then the war might have ended much before, and lots of lives would have been saved. So don't expect Russia now to react to Turkish pleas to stop the war efforts, which are crucial for the finalization of the conflict.
All right, do stay on, Professor Toloraya. I'd request a comment as we move forward as well. Now, viewers, Germany Chancellor Friedrich Merz has backed giving Belgium legal assurances of the planned use of frozen Russian state assets to support Ukraine. Merz argues that all European Union countries should share the risks fairly, proportionately to their economic strength. The European Commission proposed using frozen Russian assets or international borrowing to raise about $105 billion for Ukraine, aiming to fund military needs and basic services amid the ongoing war with Russia. Belgium, which holds most of the frozen assets, has voiced legal concerns and has yet to agree. Merz emphasized that Belgium cannot rely solely on political promises and deserves binding guarantees. He also said that it would be unacceptable for a single country to bear an excessive burden in this regard and called for collective responsibility across the European Union. The proposal marks an unprecedented step by the European Union in financing Ukraine. I'd now request Professor Toloraya to join us back into the discussion here. Professor, what is it that Russia is likely to do if Europe finalizes on a plan to use the frozen Russian sovereign assets?
Well, we shouldn't be mistaken. The Europeans are trying to rob Russia, to steal our resources, our money, to continue the conflict, to continue the war, to make Ukrainians die more, and to continue bleed Russia and bleed both Ukrainian and Russian people. That's their goal. And whatever you call it, it's still robbery. It's still robbery, and this is a crime. Whatever you would do, whatever EC would suggest, what kind of guarantees or what kind of judicial mechanism it would invent, it's still robbery, and Russia won't accept it. And whatever they do, still the day will come when the Russia will demand money back, and if not given voluntarily, it will take its money by force, by some kind of action that would may include the expropriation of European property, whatever it will be, and let the Europeans sue Russia then again. And additionally, I think that Europeans are not wise to do this right now, because US have suggested some plans to use these funds for joint efforts to repair the damage from the war conflict to both Russia and Ukraine. And US has some of their own plans. So, in fact, they're challenging President Trump and White House and US business with trying to steal the Russian money at this particular point. I don't think it's a wise idea.
All right, and Belgium has continued to speak for Russia. In the latest, it's also urged for sharing the risk plans of any potential use of these assets of Russia. How do you view that?
Well, I've said that Russia will demand and get its assets back. And it will be in a way that the politicians which are trying to do this now won't like. They will be long retired, living, spending their days in retirement, but their successors would suffer greatly.
Could you emphasize on some of the legal concerns that would arise?
Well, as I've said, there are many ways a nation can demand what belongs to it from a hostile nation. I won't predict now, but we can simply confiscate some European property, wherever it will be located.
All right. Well, thank you for speaking to us here at NewsX World. For now, I'd like to go with that. Viewers, we move on, in fact, to news from Iraq, which has announced that it will freeze the funds of Iran-backed armed groups, including Lebanon's Hezbollah and Yemen's Houthis. The move is expected to be welcomed by Washington, which has long sought to curb Iran's influence in Iraq and across the Middle East. Iran maintains significant military, political, and economic influence in Iraq through its Shiite groups and allied political parties. Baghdad, which maintains ties with both the United States and Iran, faces the challenge of balancing diplomacy, particularly amid US efforts to pressure Tehran. Now, the announcements come as Iran's regional influence has been tested by increased US sanctions and Israeli attacks on its regional proxies. Iraq's decision marks a significant step in its efforts to navigate these complex geopolitical pressures. Iraq freezes, in fact, funds of Hezbollah and Houthis. That's what the official gazette is saying, viewers. Iraq will freeze the money of Iran-backed armed groups, both Hezbollah and the Houthis. In fact, Iraq is saying what it will do to correct its fund freezing. The Justice Ministry's official gazette last month had published a list of groups and entities whose funds would be blocked, naming both Lebanon's Hezbollah and Yemen's Houthi, a move that would likely be welcomed by Washington and also put pressure on Tehran. Iraq's Terrorist Funds Freezing Committee said the November 17 publication had been intended to apply only to individuals and entities linked to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Now, the committee said that several unrelated groups were mistakenly included because the list was released before final revisions are completed. All right, I would now welcome Matty Swag, a geopolitical expert from Tel Aviv, into the discussion. First of all, Matty, can you verify the authenticity of these reports? Because we're now learning that there seems to have been a publication error, and Iraq is in fact correcting a list of groups that had been mentioned, which also include Hezbollah and Houthis.
Well, hello, Kriti. In the last months, I would say, Iraq was under a lot of pressure from the American administration because they would like to open more to the West, to boost their exports and everything and investments. So they would like to have good relations with the United States, and it's also a political internal thing because from one side, the Shiites in Iraq, they are, in the center and south of the country, and they are 65% of all the population, so they are very powerful inside Iraq. From the other side, the three parts of this mosaic called Iraq, which means the
and the Shiites, they would like to mend a lot of things in their economy, and that's part of their decision to ban these terrorist organizations. From one side, Hezbollah, from the other side, the Houthis, which of course is not very pleased for the Shiites that they are very connected to Iran. But the Shiites also are under pressure to be independent, to feel part of a united Iraq. And that was also part of the decision to ban this organization. It's going to be good for them because it's going to lower the quantity of penetration and terrorist acts that these two entities were also with internal extremists from Iraq doing inside Iraq. And they were also requested by the Trump administration, if you remember, not to throw missiles on Israel, and now it's also a possibility for them to do it because there has been an agreement in Gaza. So altogether, it's a huge geopolitical shift, but a very needed shift for the Iraqi government.
All right, thank you, Matty Zweig, for joining us in this discussion here. And with that, viewers, let's move on. A United Nations Security Council delegation has arrived in Syria for its first ever visit, just days before the first anniversary of Bashar al-Assad's ouster. The delegation entered via the Lebanon-Syria border and will meet Syrian officials, including President Ahmed al-Shara, as well as civil society representatives. They also visited the heavily damaged suburb of Jobar in Damascus. The United Nations Security Council is aiming to support Syria's transition and rebuild trust after years of civil war. The visit comes amid rising regional tension, including recent Israeli military incursions that killed 13 people in Beit Jin. UN officials hope the trip strengthens dialogue and encourages a peaceful, inclusive path forward. Moving on, viewers, Australia's internet regulator has said that teen social media ban would be the first domino to fall in a global push to rein big tech Meta's Instagram, Facebook and Thread, which began locking out hundreds of thousands of accounts ahead of a deadline next week. E-Safety Commissioner Julie Inman-Grons has stated that she has initially expressed concern about the blunt force approach of blocking children under the age of 16 from social media, but she had come to embrace it after incremental regulatory changes were not effective enough. Let's listen into what Julie Inman had to say.
But I think we've reached a tipping point where something more forceful needed to be done.
So you're thinking?
These are surveillance devices. We are commodified. Our data is the currency that fuels these companies today. And there are these powerful, harmful, deceptive design features that even adults are powerless to fight against, like autoplay and endless scroll and snap streaks. So what chance do our children have? I've always referred to this as the first domino, which is why they push back. They did push back pretty vigorously. And one of the companies, instead of implementing the age assurance, were spending time lobbying the European Commission.
And we move on. A Los Angeles doctor who admitted supplying ketamine to actor Matthew Perry has been sentenced to 30 months in federal prison. Dr. Carlos Plasencia is the first of 5 defendants to be sentenced in connection with the case, though he did not plead to causing the actor's death. Dr. Carlos pleaded guilty over the summer to 4 counts of distributing ketamine. The charges carried a maximum of 40 years in prison, though prosecutors had asked for a sentence of 3 years. The 4 others charged in the case, including another doctor, Perry's assistant, and 2 people who supplied the ketamine dose that killed him, have also pleaded guilty and are set to be sentenced in the coming months. Meanwhile, after the court verdict, Perry's stepfather, Keith Morrison,